Hey everybody, I'm Mel Robbins. I'm a contributing editor to Success Magazine, a on-air analyst for CNN, and a best-selling author, and I'm so fired up that you are here. Welcome to Success Magazine. You're watching a live broadcast of the Success Insider podcast with Shelby I can't see her. What is your last name? Skurhawk. I even got coaching on this. This is one of my trademarks, to mispronounce everybody's last name. So Shelby Skurhawk and Josh Ellis. Take it away, guys.
Thank you. Welcome.
Well, Mel Robbins is an evangelist of the power of action, getting started, making a move, a motivational speaker, best-selling author, CNN analyst, and a success contributing editor and columnist. She is a massive proponent of what she calls the 5-second rule. If a life-changing idea or opportunity comes your way, you better act fast. With that in mind, we will waste no more time and get right into the interview. Mel, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here.
All right, so let's dive right in. So more and more people are describing themselves as self-employed, be they entrepreneurs, small business owners, freelancers, whatever they describe is what's changing different, what's different about outside the normal of what used to be considered normal employment. We're calling this the U economy, and it's gaining some traction. So what do you make of this development? Why do you think it's easier now than before to be able to kind of step away from the corporate world and assert themselves as something more, something different?
Well, it's a great question, Shelby, and I think that there are two reasons why the U economy is possible. And those same two reasons explain why you're seeing a growing number of people that you probably know, people that you may be related to, or perhaps you yourself find that you're daydreaming a lot about the possibilities of having financial freedom and flexibility and doing something on your own. So I would say in the last 15 years, the two major things that have happened that make this moment right now, the most exciting time to be alive and the U economy possible. And that is, number one, that the proliferation of technology that has interwoven its way into our day-to-day lives, everything from the smartphones that we use and the way in which it's impacted your behavior. Like, most of us don't even realize the fact that if you and I are in a conversation, Josh, and I suddenly am saying to you, we should make some guacamole tonight. Within seconds of us saying that, and then I'm like, hey, do you have avocados? You're like, well, I don't know how to make it. If we have a question, if we need information, if we want to expand the conversation in any way, we don't even think about it. We actually, correct, and you do a search. We have become neurologically and from a behavioral standpoint hardwired to the information that's now available on the internet. So that's one thing, it's changed behavior. Number two, and as part of that changing behavior, you have technologies that are available to you that were never available to you 15 years ago. You have social media networks that are basically marketing and sharing platforms. You have sharing platforms like an Airbnb or an Uber or a TaskRabbit, where you can now either market some of the assets that you have, from a free bedroom to a free seat in your car to free time that you have to run errands. You also have these incredible direct seller companies that are offering you opportunities to build businesses. On top of all of that, you've got technologies that allow you to become a storefront, whether it's a website through Squarespace that costs you $20 a month, or it's a square that you can get for your iPhone that turns your phone into a cash register so that you can sell your granola at a farmer's market. Those were not technologies that were available to the public 15 years ago. So that's the first thing. But the second thing that's equally as important, as all of these technologies have come into our lives, and as we've become used to using them in our own lives, whether it's making a search online for guacamole or it's putting your credit card on Amazon, you as a customer of services online and you as a customer of products online have also come up the pipe. 15 years ago, you would not be comfortable putting your credit card online, believe it or not. 15 years ago, you would not have been able to actually build a website for yourself without hiring a company like agency.com, which my husband worked for. And at the time, companies were literally paying millions of dollars to put a website up. So what's possible today from a technology standpoint and a behavior standpoint, and from a comfort level of people being willing to work with people remotely, those two things converging is what I believe makes the U economy possible, and what makes this moment in time so exciting for each and every one of us.
Well, I know this about guacamole. There's no peas in it. Have you seen this New York Times thing about put green peas in the guacamole? Yeah. So wrong. Don't look up.
I've not tried that. That actually sounds pretty good. No? Do you put cilantro on yours?
Of course.
Yes.
Oh.
Lime.
Lime.
Yes. See, you don't need to Google it then. You're fine. But I am going to Google the pea one. That actually makes me quite interested.
Which is a perfect conversation for Cinco de Mayo today.
Oh, that's true. It is Cinco de Mayo today.
Good timing. All right. So, how would you characterize, Mel, the positives of this U economy development, not only for the people who are joining it, but for the consumer or the larger American economy as a whole?
Well, the U economy is an extremely inclusive one, and it's an expansive one. And so what's so exciting about the U economy is that there is zero barrier to entry. If you have the desire, if you have the work ethic, if you're willing to start, you can basically participate in the U economy in endless ways. And that's very exciting because it means from a consumer, the number of granola, let's stay on food categories because I love to eat, the number of granola that's available to me is no longer limited by the grocery store in my neighborhood. I can go online and go to either individual websites, the people that are participating in the U economy by putting up their own websites, sell their own product, are selling. I can now buy granola at the farmer's market and different varieties of it because people have been empowered to actually set up shop, because you can use a square to create, the iPhone, turn your iPhone into a cash register. I can Google and watch tutorials about it. So if I wanted to get into the business of marketing my grandmother's recipe of granola, I can actually learn about the business of creating my own business in my own house and how you go about marketing it. And so it's very exciting from a consumer standpoint because it creates so many more options, both from a retail product standpoint and a professional services. If I need branding help, I can work it with somebody in London, in India, in Indiana, in California, in Kentucky. Anyone that's willing to put their stuff online is now somebody that I could potentially use as a resource in my business. That's really exciting. That's exciting from a number of levels. The other reason why the U economy is so expansive is because the only thing that's going to limit you is the obstacles that you put in your own way. So if, I'll give you a perfect example. This is a little kind of out there, but my son, who's 11, is way into this kid named EvanTube. And for those of you that have little boys, there's a kid that has taken the internet by storm. He started in 2009. What is EvanTube? It's QVC for little boys about Legos. No joke. It is a kid who was super passionate about Legos, and his dad happened to be a videographer who was shooting weddings and was freelancer. And so he thought, what the heck? I'm just going to film my son talking about Legos. They put up a few videos in 2009. A hit here and there. They kept doing it. Why? Because of the U economy. Not because of the U economy, but because they knew they were kind of onto something, and it was kind of fun. And there was no cost except for your time. So they keep putting these videos up. 6 years later, 7 years later, wherever we are now, 2016, they started in 2009 as a lark. I'm not kidding you when I tell you this father and son team are now one of the most popular channels on all of YouTube. They have over 1 billion hits. They have more than 1.3 subscribers. And last year, they made more than $1.3 million. Now, what's really amazing is our son, Oak, loves EvanTube, both because he loves watching the Legos and he loves the content, but he's also really angry because this kid gets all these free toys and so he can't help himself but watch. He has been begging us for 2 years to start his own channel. And the only thing that he needs is basically an iPhone and time to film something and upload it to YouTube. And so, honestly, there is no barrier to entry. If you have access to a computer, if you have access to the internet, if you've got a smartphone, it's got a camera on it, and it's got a video camera on it, you can literally start anything. And the other great thing about the U economy is that you don't have to quit your job to start. In fact, you probably shouldn't. The latest research, and I know that we've got Adam Grant featured prominently in the magazine coming up. He's the youngest tenured professor at Wharton, and he wrote a book called The Originals, How Nonconformists Rule the World. He talks about this landmark study where they followed 5,000 entrepreneurs, and they found that people that started something on the side while they were working were 33% more likely to succeed because they didn't bring the level of stress and intensity, and they gave it the time to really incubate, and they were able to divide and conquer between keeping the stability of a job and building something because of the U economy. And what's so great about the U economy is it's so flexible. If you want to start with one video a week, if you want to start with just going to a farmer's market, if you want to start with a direct selling company, and just start small, if you keep at it, it will snowball. It's really exciting.
So there's plenty of positives then to the new economy, but there are going to be negative people out there, and so there are going to be some naysayers that say, why would someone want to be an entrepreneur? Why would you want to go and break out on your own, be self-employed, without a safety net, without a guaranteed paycheck, and become part of this new economy?
Well, first of all, there's going to be naysayers no matter what you do. And if you're going to spend your life listening to them, then you're not living your life. You're basically living somebody else's life. And you're not going to be happy. Now, I'm not advising you to take some massive risk and do something stupid and quit your job when you can't afford to. But you can also not afford to listen to people that shoot down everything that you do. So that's number one. Number two, there are risks to everything. There's actually risks to staying in the job that you're in if you hate it. There's a risk to your health, to your happiness, to your legacy, and there's no guarantee. We don't live in a world of pensions anymore. And one of the best things that you can do for your soul, that you can do for your bank account, that you can do for your future, that you can do for your legacy, that you can do for your kids, that you can do for your happiness, is to listen to yourself and to pursue things that actually interest you. And what's amazing about the U economy is that you can do that in small ways that mitigate risk. So you can start this website on the side like Lunchbox Dad did. So lunchboxdad.com is another U economy model. A guy who was working a corporate job, who was dropping his kid off at daycare, and wanted to promote healthy foods and feel a little bit more connected to his kids. So you know what he did? He made these like crazy detailed lunches. When I say detailed, I mean he's turning broccoli into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then he would photograph them and put them up online. It's become one of the most popular dad blogs online, which is enabling him to leave his job because of the corporate spot. He never intended to do that. He put something out there. So are there risks? Of course. There's always a risk when you put any idea out there. There's always a risk when you start something new. There's always going to be people that poo-poo what you're doing. In fact, there are people that are poo-pooing what you're doing right now. They probably just don't tell you. And the real shame in life is that we spend way too much time thinking about what other people are going to think instead of spending time listening to what we really want. And I think the biggest risk with the U economy is that this might just be yet another example where you saw an opportunity, where you had an impulse to jump in. A lot of people had this with real estate. When real estate was hot, you thought, oh, I should jump in there and flip a house or get a rental property, and then all of a sudden the bubble started blowing up and all these people made money. But what were you doing? You were thinking. You were listening to all the doubters. Oops. Guess what you got? A lot of regret. A lot of regret. And the cool thing about the U economy is, unlike real estate where it might cost you $10,000, $20,000, $100,000 to get into the game, this will cost you time and effort. You can get into the U economy for $0 down, no joke, and leverage your time, your assets like a spare bedroom or a spare seat in your car, your spare time running errands, you know, leveraging your time on TaskRabbit for other people that are, by the way, chained to a desk in a job that they hate. And, you know, what's the risk? The risk is if you don't move, you're gonna, 5 years from now, when everybody else has left that boring corporate job that you have, you're gonna be the one still sitting there. And you're gonna wish that you had started 5 years ago. You're gonna wish, because you're gonna think back to this podcast and you're gonna be all jacked after you hear this podcast, and you're gonna be like, yes, I'm gonna call that direct seller, I'm gonna get started, I'm gonna start that website, I'm gonna take my accounting services, and I'm gonna start marketing myself to companies as a financial analyst. This is gonna be amazing. And then guess what? You're gonna stop yourself. That's stupid. And 5 years from now, you're gonna look up, you're gonna be exactly where you are right now. And that's not bad if where you are is where you wanna be. But there is a huge wave that's happening right now. And the people that are starting are the ones that are gonna win. I wish that we had started in 2009. I was fully capable of videotaping Oakley making Legos. I'd certainly love to have my husband home full time making videos with my son, making $1.3 million. Wouldn't you love that? And having Legos sending free toys so I don't have to buy the darn things? That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And there's a million opportunities like that. And guess what? There's probably room for 1,000 more Evans to make that much money. Because he's only got 1.3 million subscribers. Do you know how many kids are around the world that are online right now?
17, 18,000 kids.
Yeah.
I have no idea how many.
I don't know, but there's how many billion people on the planet, and how many of them are on Facebook alone? So when you think, like the other mistake that we make, and this is a huge mistake, and I'm guilty of it too, is that you think that there's only room for a few people. The world's a huge place, absolutely huge. There's enough room for everybody to succeed, but the only people that succeed are the ones that actually start.
And life is risk. I mean, there's risk in doing or not doing. And so I want to take this personal a little bit. I mean, for you, you were a full-time lawyer and you left that behind to become an author and an entrepreneur. And I'm sure that you had your naysayers at the time. And how did you convince yourself that you didn't need to listen to them?
You know, it's a great question, Josh. And, you know, what happened for me is I was a lawyer for almost 5 years. And I was a public defender in Manhattan, and then we moved to Boston. And I was not licensed to practice in the state of Massachusetts, so I had to take a job in a big corporate law firm, and I absolutely hated my life. Hated it. I mean, I remember just that anxiety that would start to fill my body as I would leave the commuter train and walk to the high rise and step into the elevator and go up to the office and just think, this is what it's become. And when I got pregnant and I was on maternity leave, and I remember saying to my husband, I can't go back. I just can't do it. I don't want to be a lawyer. I don't want to do that. And he said, well, we have this house and we have a mortgage to pay. You got two choices. You either go back or you find a job. And at the time, it was $60,000. You have to make $60,000. I don't care if you're managing a coffee shop for Starbucks. You need to go find a job for that amount of money. And what's interesting about human beings is that when we have a problem, we tend to figure out how to solve it. I think we don't get enough problems in life. But I had exactly 5 weeks to find a job that paid $60,000. And I networked like crazy and ended up landing a job in a startup. And the starting salary was $60,000. And I had a run in high tech in the startup scene in Boston for 3 or 4 years, and I ultimately left it to become a coach, both doing executive and life coaching, and that's when I faced the most scrutiny. Because people were like, what is a coach? What do you mean? What are you gonna do? How do you make money? What? People pay you to do what? And that would have been around 2003 or 4, and not a lot of people were talking about coaching. And I think that to say that those questions drove me would be a lie. I think that, you know, when somebody questions what you're doing, it really does hit you hard. And you have a choice to make. You know, you're either going to keep soldiering on despite what people say, or you're really going to let what other people say determine how your life goes. And that's really the secret to life in a nutshell, is either other people decide what's happening to you or you decide what's happening to you. And so will the criticism get you down? You better believe it will. If you start a direct seller business inside one of these remarkable companies and one of your friends makes some snarky remark about pyramid schemes, is it going to bother you? Of course it is, because you know it isn't one. Just like it would bother you if somebody said, you know, your kid's kind of a mean girl, even though you know it's not true. Those things bother you because they hit personally. But to me, the real strength comes from going deep and deciding, well, what's in it for you? Like, why are you doing this? Is your personal freedom and flexibility and the business you want to build more important than what, somebody else says? Of course it is. And, as I've gone in the media business, I've had a total change of heart about this whole thing. Because when you're on television, as much as I am on CNN, you normally, 95% of what you get is a personal attack, particularly as a woman. I mean, I get so much flack for my neck and, for how, like my face looking like a witch and, some of this, I can't actually say out loud what people write to me because it is so disgusting. And one of the things that has happened for me being subjected to that level of personal attack day in and day out is I realized something. People only say negative things when you've really hit a nerve with them. I'm not kidding.
Right.
Because if I were on television and I were saying something that you could care less about, you wouldn't take the time to write. But if I said something that actually pissed you off, it's because there was a level of truth inside of it. And so the insight that I've gotten is that when I get negative feedback like, who are you to do that? Or multi-level marketing, what? Well, you're gonna quit your job. What do you mean you're gonna start a design service? I just got an email from a friend of mine that's joined the U Economy yesterday. And she's been a teacher for 30 years. She's got an incredible talent in terms of her landscape design skills and her internal, house design skills. And she's never, quote, gone to school for it, but she has spent her life creating amazing things in her own house, in her own yard. And so she just launched her own business doing it. And as I read her email, dear friends, launching her new business, and Suzanne Craig, I'm so proud of you, it struck me that it took a lot of courage to write that. Even though my immediate reaction was, you should have done this 15 years ago because you're a genius. But the point that I'm trying to tell you is this is what I want you to steal from me. If people criticize what you're doing, it's usually because there's something about what you're doing or how you're behaving that tweaks something that's unresolved for somebody else. Like jealous might not be the right thing, but there's something about your bravery and sending out a message about your new company, or something about the freedom that they see in you when you're talking about the fact that you've taken on this new direct selling opportunity. There's something about your boldness and your courage when you put yourself out there, which is what the U Economy requires, that they're not doing. So that's how I've been able to handle 6 years of massive personal attacks at CNN, is to basically say, I'm tweaking something inside that person. There's something I'm doing that's creating something that is uncomfortable for them, and that's why they're attacking me.
So that fear, that kind of unsure feeling that you would get inside, I mean, that's one of the things that really hold people back, fear of failure. So how can people retool their thinking about failure so they can take the leap and really take control of their life?
So it's a great question, and I think it's the most important one, because you know, when you join the U economy, whether it's inside of a sharing platform or a direct selling opportunity, or you're going to launch your own website, there are tools out there that will teach you what to do. And there are systems out there that will guide you step by step by step. And you know, you're probably in touch with why you want to do it. But the real thing that nobody talks about is how. How do you deal with the fear of failure? How do you deal with the self-doubt? How do you deal with the feelings that will stop you? And I'm glad you asked the question, because you may have never heard this before, but the critical battle in the fight for your dreams, the critical first battle that you have to win is always with your feelings. And those feelings of fear, those feelings of self-doubt, the fear of judgment, the fear of failure, it's never going away. It's part of our hard wiring. It's almost like a protection mechanism. You know, you're about to start something new. That means it's uncertain. That means it's scary. And the second that you're facing something that's new or scary or uncertain, your mind is going to tweak out and try to yank you away from it, because it's uncertain, because it's scary. It's just how you're wired. And so the way that you beat the feelings is, you know, I do it by using the 5-second rule. All you do is the second that you feel yourself hesitating, the second that you feel fear kicking in, the second that somebody says, just silently go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, why would you do that? The reason why you do that is because the moment you start feeling afraid, the moment you start feeling judgment, the moment somebody starts critiquing you, your brain is going to go straight onto autopilot. It's going to check out. It's going to pull you into worry and fear and get out of there and shut it down. And you cannot let your brain do that. If you count backwards in the moment, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you actually shake your brain out of that mode. You quiet all the baloney that's in your head or that somebody else is saying. And now you've actually, it's almost like erasing a chalkboard. You've just given yourself a clean slate in a moment where normally your brain would hijack you. And now you can push ahead. You can say, interesting. Yeah, you know, there used to be a lot of criticism about that. In fact, I don't know if you're a Trump supporter, but one of his companies, you know, I don't know if you should edit that thing out. You know, that's not the case. You know how you go into Target and all those products are in there? It's the exact same stuff. I'm just selling it to you direct, which means you're getting better quality at a cheaper price, period. Like you just have, you say the thing that you've actually been taught to say when you get that objection.
I love your 5-second rule. That's my favorite application is when you see someone across the room who you want to meet, whether, you know, for me, I'm single, so it could be a date, or it could be someone you want to network with, or anything like that. It's applicable in so many ways. As we talk about the U economy, and we'll end here, how do we know if we're on the right track when we sort of strike out on our own?
Well, you know, I think it's very important for you to understand that you're not going to know. And that you need to simply start. You need to pick something. Instead of thinking about which company, pick the one that immediately you're drawn towards. Just trust your instincts on it. Instead of worrying about whether the website is red or the website is blue or, you know, what you should do, pick something. Stick with it for a couple months. Because what I know about business, and I'm now on my 3rd one, and I'm married to an entrepreneur, and as a coach, I coached 50 different CEOs around the country, and you know, here at Success Magazine, we do nothing but talk to entrepreneurs and people in the U economy. What you think you're building when you start is nothing like what you end up creating. And the difference between people that are successful and those who aren't is the fact that the people that are successful actually started. They didn't spend 7 years thinking about it. They picked something and they started. And then as things changed, and as they realized they hated the color red, they just changed it to blue. And as they wrote their first song and they hated it, they wrote a different one. I mean, look at Prince. They say how many thousands of songs are in a vault somewhere? He had a number of hits, but that came out of trying over and over and over again. And I think we forget that, you know, life is not about being perfect, and you're not going to be successful overnight. I mean, I've spent 10 years sleeping on couches and doing television shows nobody's ever heard of or even watched, thank gosh, because they were terrible. to actually arrive where I arrive. People come up to me all the time and say, I want to be a speaker. By the way, being a speaker is being part of the U economy. You're in a business for yourself. 9 years ago, I was speaking in lunchrooms to 3 people about things that were interesting. How do you start? You start by starting. You start in the smallest possible way, and then you expect things to change. That's how it goes. And thinking that it's any other way is foolish, because it's not. So I would say, if you're listening to this and you're wanting to do something, I'm sure there's one thing that really you're passionate about. There's one thing that you really love to do. Either find a direct selling company that's in that realm, or find a sharing platform, or start that website like Evan Tube did in 2009 and Lunchbox Dad did just a couple of years ago, and start and see where it goes. And the best thing about it is I got my best training when nobody was paying attention. I won the Gracie Award in 2014, was named America's top talk radio host. And before I had a syndicated radio show, I had a show on Sirius that was a call-in advice show that was absolutely horrifically horrible. Horrible. And luckily, nobody listened to it as far as I know. But that year of doing something that was horrible was the training ground that gave me my next job, which, by the way, was a Saturday morning show for 2 hours for $50. That's what I got paid, to do 2 hours of live radio every Saturday. In the Boston market. I did it for a couple years, and that's what led to me getting picked up in a different market on a 5-day-a-week show that ultimately, went across a number of stations in the South, which led to me winning this award. I would never have been able to start with a syndicated show, ever. And the only reason why I became as good as I did is because I started, first of all, and I had 3 years of training where I really sucked. Seriously. And that's how you become somebody. Jay-Z, all these people that we admire, anybody. So the list for everybody's, Richard Branson and Bill Gates and J.K. Rowling and Oprah Winfrey, and we have the same list, every one of us. Do you know that every one of the people that we admire did the exact same thing? They started, and they listened to themselves, no matter what. Like when they were in business, and they had an instinct, and people were like, they listened to themselves. Every single one of the people you admire will tell you the exact same thing. How do you do it? Well, you can use the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then move in the direction of the thing that's important to you and forget about all the baloney that everybody else is saying.
That's the really incredible thing about the U economy as we see it, is there's only one person who can fill your role in it, has the experiences and the resume and just the life background to fill your role, and that's you. And there's so many ways to get into it. You went down the gamut of the sharing economy and direct selling, starting a website, and the gig economy. There are a lot of names for what's going on, and there are a lot of great resources. I think you'll find them on success.com and in the magazine and through your platforms, Mel. How can people find you on Twitter and Facebook, and what's your site that they should visit?
Yeah, so the website's just Mel Robbins, Robbins, melrobbins.com. No, I am not married to Tony Robbins. Although he's an amazing guy. I'm married to Christopher Robbins. And all of our social stuff is there. It's either Mel Robbins Live or just Mel Robbins and all this stuff. And everything we do on social media is actually designed for the U economy, because all the media we put out and all the content, from the original videos to the articles to the stuff that we're doing with Success, is designed to either push you or cheer for you. And if you have those two things, but whether it's from somebody like me or the folks that are amazing here at Success cheering you on and pushing you, and you have yourself pushing you, you're going to win.
Powerful stuff, Shelby. This is the future. What do you think?
It's definitely inspiring, and it's definitely hopefully connecting with some of our listeners. So.
Well, Mel, thanks so much for joining us.
Next time I want guacamole.
Okay.
No peas.